In the Mail yesterday, we read the news: a man is planning to sue his parents in India for giving birth to him without his consent. It's the 12-year-old's cry, "I never asked to be born!" But now it comes from a 27-year-old who adds, "So lawyer up, daddy-o." Raphael Samuel said he had a great relationship with his parents, notice the past tense there, but he has compared having children to kidnapping and slavery. Yeah, it's the kind of kidnapping and slavery where you drag someone kicking and screaming from the black void of utter nothingness and forcibly yank them into the world of being, breath, beauty and bliss. It's that kind of kidnapping, and then you force them against their non-existent will to remain existent in this world, enslaved to life and love and longing, whether they choose it or not. It's that kind of slavery, the worst sort. The 27-year-old from Mumbai is an antinatalist who believes it is wrong to put an unwilling child through the rigmarole of life for the pleasure of its parents. Now, there are many cues in this article to the fact that Samuel has no children of his own, but none could be more conclusive than this. He thinks parents have children for their own personal pleasure. This is a theme for Samuel. One of his Facebook memes says, "Your parents had you instead of a toy or a dog. You owe them nothing. You are their entertainment." Entertainment, says a man who clearly has no children. Now, kids are a joy, a privilege, they are wonderful, but anyone who has kids as a hobby will soon find that their new pastime is no longer Netflix binges, but rather blowing on food for what seems an eternity and insisting to your bawling toddler, "It's not hot!" It has well been said that from the moment you have children, you can only ever be as happy as your least happy child. If Samuel thinks you have kids for kicks, that tells us only about his own motivations, not those of parents more generally. The article goes on. The antinatalist movement is gaining traction in India as younger people resist social pressure to have children. Now, this is what interested me. You see, I'm not quite convinced that Raphael Samuel is actually legit. Something makes me think he has a touch of the troll to him.
There is no need to have children.
The Daily Mail takes him seriously. I'm not sure I do. Hard to say where I get my skepticism from. Perhaps it's his obviously fake comedy beard. Perhaps it's the fact he seems to wear a bra on his head for some of his publicity shots. I'm not sure Raphael Samuel is for real, but the antinatalist movement definitely is. In fact, in India, they're having a big meetup on February the 10th in Bangalore. They have many far more serious figures advocating for their position, and they've been covered in the Times of India and other respectable outlets. There has definitely been a movement birthed, if I'm allowed to use that word. The logic is simple. Here it is, expressed by Thanos in Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's a simple calculus. This universe is finite, its resources finite. If life is left unchecked, life will cease to exist. It needs correction.
You don't know that!
By the way, if your philosophy sounds exactly like that of the most evil supervillain in the universe, then maybe you're one of the baddies.
Are we the baddies?
Yep. Antinatalism is pretty self-evidently perverse. We know it's wrong. We know our choices cannot be foundational to our lives because, guess what? Our choices were not foundational to our lives, right? We live by the choice and the mercy of others. We know that we owe our existence to our parents, that we owe them gratitude and respect, not lawsuits. We know that life is worth it, even in this suffering world, don't we? Well, we ought to. But actually, every failure and every folly in my life is actually an expression of an anti-life philosophy. It's the embrace of death, of the void, of nothing. When we sin, we are all antinatalists, even though it makes no sense. Every time I imagine that my choice and my autonomy is what's fundamental to my life, I am an antinatalist. I'm against life. Every time I think of myself as a self-made man, every time I'm proud rather than grateful, I'm an antinatalist. I'm against life. Every time I imagine that suffering could never be worth it, and so I become hopeless or bitter, I'm an antinatalist. I'm against life. But life comes down to planet Earth to reverse our way of death. Jesus overturns death. And that doesn't just mean he promises resurrection in the end. It means he conquers the whole way and philosophy of death. He tells you that you do not live by your choices, you live by his mercy and kindness. You are not self-made, you are graced by God. And don't ever think that the suffering of this world is not worth it. Jesus took all the suffering on himself because he made a calculation. He considered the joy set before him, the glorious new life of resurrection, and he thought that the suffering of all the world was worth it. That's how every parent reasons when they bring life into the world. They know it will be painful, and they do it anyway because life is worth it. So, reject this philosophy of death. Reject this view of autonomy. Reject this view of entitlement. Reject this view of hopelessness. Don't listen to Raphael.
You are irrelevant in the scale of things.
Listen to Jesus. Embrace life.